AEW Redemption exposed the fatal flaw of the aerial assassin Will Ospreay. What is that flaw? That he's Charmin baby soft. He couldn't do what Jon Moxley asked him to do. He couldn't pull the trigger. And I'm going to tell you what the next step is for Will Ospreay on this episode of the Crimson Mask Show. All right, Mask Gang, let's get right into it. Will Ospreay is soft. Will Ospreay is soft. There's really no other words for it. Jon Moxley, a couple weeks ago, I can't remember, a few weeks ago, he told Will Ospreay, when that moment comes for you to pull the trigger, you have to do it. And on two separate occasions, Will Ospreay failed to do so. He failed to do so in the tag match against the Bucks. It cost him the match, and he failed to put Kenny Omega down after Kenny Omega defeated Kevin Knight. And what did that get him for his troubles? For all his troubles, standing up to the Death Riders, punching Jon Moxley in the face, hitting Pac with a fucking phenomenal hidden blade, almost knocked his head clean off of his shoulders. What did that get him? Just got him one-winged angel. That's all. That's all it got him, was a one-winged angel. Now, a little moment that I'm pretty sure everybody caught. Claudio was about to get back in the ring and tear Will Ospreay apart with a chair, and Jon stopped him. Jon stopped him. You know why? Jon Moxley is a forgiving man. Jon Moxley is a benevolent man. So I fully expect Jon Moxley on Dynamite to approach Will Ospreay and not kick his ass. No, not kick his ass. God forbid he kicks the ass of Charmin Baby Soft and tears the tissue apart. He's not going to kick his ass. He's going to tell Will Ospreay 4 words. I told you so. I told you so. I told you when it was time for you to pull the trigger that you're going to have to pull the trigger. Not pull the trigger on me, you fucking idiot. Pull the trigger on Kenny Omega. Like, what are we doing here? Will Ospreay is by far one of my favorite wrestlers in the AEW, but the moments of softness in Redemption, I thought we were turning the corner. I thought we were getting away from the white meat babyface bullshit that's plagued guys like Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega. But you know who I was proud of at Redemption? I was proud of Kenny Omega. Because Kenny Omega could have given him a pass. Now, was I a little bit confused when Kenny Omega picked up the bag and started pointing at Will Ospreay? Hey, what the fuck? Because from my perspective, Kenny Omega either saw or should have saw that Will Ospreay ripped the bag apart and saw him attacking the Death Riders. So I guess Kenny looked at it like, yep, you should have listened to Jon. You turned your back on me. Bow. One ring angel. You're done. If this happens at All In, you're done. I'm going to embarrass you in front of your whole family. Will Ospreay has to change. Jon Moxley, I don't think he's done with Will Ospreay. I think if I had to predict something today, my prediction would be that by time All In comes around, Will Ospreay is going to be ready to pull the trigger. He's going to be ready to pull the trigger. Now, do I think or know if Will Ospreay is going to be back with the Death Riders, or is he going to continue to be apart from the Death Riders? I don't know. Do I know if at All In, do I know if all this is just one big sham? And I wouldn't be surprised because it's professional wrestling. If all this is just one big sham where All In, the Death Riders help Will Ospreay defeat Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay accepts the help, beats the shit out of Kenny Omega. But then again, we're talking about AEW here. I am horrible at predicting AEW because AEW does not book things within logic. Could I see a scenario where All In comes around and Kenny Omega is the one that joins the Death Riders? You never know what the fuck you're going to get with AEW. But I do know one thing. Will Ospreay has to stop being soft. If this wasn't a wake-up call for Will Ospreay, I don't know what the fuck will wake him up. Because if you get hit with a one-wing angel after you just saved the same guy to hit you with that move from being suffocated, and you come back on Dynamite like, oh yeah, Mike, you got me real good, Mike, then we got a big fucking problem. We got a big fucking disconnect. We seen some title change hands at Redemption. Now, I'm not sure all of the title changes make sense. I'll go through it. First of all, you had Andrade beat Mark Davis. That makes a ton of fucking sense to me. Because while I like Mark Davis, we need to see a title around the waist of Andrade. I don't think we seen a title around his waist his first time in AEW. We didn't see a title around his waist when he went back to WWE, but now that he's back with AEW, finally he gets a title around his waist worthy of someone of his caliber. Now we got to see what he's going to do with it. Is he going to be a generic, boring champion, or is he actually going to be entertaining? Because I do have some concerns about Andrade as a champion. And I think they did a good job starting him off with that particular title because right now, I just can't see Andrade as a TNT champion or AEW champion. Then, in one of our bigger surprises, we see Maya World beat Hikaru Shida. Okay, so this is pretty tough because I love Hikaru Shida. I love me some Hikaru Shida, and I feel like she lost the belt too fast. But I can't deny the talent and the ability that is my world. It can't be denied. Like for once I felt like AEW was like, let's make a newer star. I think this almost kind of like a change of the guard because usually what you have to see is these top young performers, these top new faces lose to the old guard like wrestlers like Karushida. For example, her being Queen Aminata. Now, oh, don't get me fucking started on Queen Aminata. Do not get me started on there. Like, and I understand this is an AEW video, and I understand the sickos, but far be it to me to call for people who probably should seek greener pastures. That doesn't mean WWE. It could be TNA, even though that's kind of a WWE subsidiary, but whatever. She needs to go somewhere else. Like, I'll be honest. I made a video on my other channel, what feels like two plus years ago, about how Queen Aminata is being disrespected. She's underrated. She should be put in a way higher spot than what she is. And it's like 2 years later, and we're still seeing the same shit. But I digress. This shit isn't even about Queen Aminata, but once I talk about it, it just fucking blows my mind. The good thing is that we're not getting that with my world. It looks like they're actually giving her a push. They're actually showing her respect now. If we turn around and on Collision or next month or whenever, she loses the belt to Mercedes, loses the belt to somebody else that's always fucking winning, then I have an issue with that. Speaking of having an issue with that, I am completely torn on Willow Nightingale beating Tekla. Yeah, I know I called her drunk. I know I called Tekla drunk in another video, but I don't quite feel like it was time for Tekla to drop that title. Now, it's tough because I do think that it was far time for Willow Nightingale to get that title. But I just don't like that Tekla lost it right here. What I would have preferred, what I would have preferred is Tekla retaining the title by some type of mishap or something like that, and then having Willow defeat her for it. It could have been on Dynamite Collision. It could have been a couple weeks from now, whatever. If I'm not mistaken, now don't get me wrong, don't kill me, guys, because while I do watch AEW, I do sometimes I'm a little stiff on the details. If I'm not mistaken, I believe Mercedes Monet gets the title shot against Willow Nightingale at All In because she won the Owen Hart Classic. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. But what are we going to do? Are we going to have? Because here's what we can't see. What we can't see is Willow Nightingale face off against Mercedes Monet at All In, and then have Willow Nightingale defeat Mercedes Monet again. We can't fucking have that. It is as long as it's been for Willow Nightingale to have that AEW Women's title, it's even longer overdue in my personal opinion for Mercedes Moné to have the AEW Women's title. It's just time. You can't have Willow Nightingale roll into All In as champion against Mercedes Moné and roll out. And again, if that's not a match that's already confirmed, then I apologize. I digress. But it doesn't change the point that Mercedes, it's time for her to hold that strap. But again, I'm torn because if the plan is for Mercedes to hold that strap, to get the strap at All In, then why the fuck we have Willow Nightingale win it at Redemption? All In is only like a few short weeks away, and when she's gonna roll into All In and lose it, that just feels like too many title changes too fast. And if you're going to do that, you should have just had Tekla roll in there, but then you probably don't want a heel versus heel match. I don't fucking know. I don't know, but somebody's gonna have to figure it out. Am I confident it's gonna get figured out? No, no, I'm not, because like I always said, booking and AEW just don't fucking go hand in hand. The wrestling is great. The booking leaves a lot to be desired. This week's Clown Corner for AEW. Ooh, that's gonna sting. What's gonna sting? The fact that my last week's video about AEW, I was glazing a match between Chris Jericho and Tommaso Ciampa. And boy, oh boy, 1 week later, was I fucking wrong. Was I fucking wrong? Oh my goodness gracious. First of all, it's time to hang it up, Chris. I love you. You were one of my first favorite wrestlers. It's time to fucking hang it up, Chris. Like, or at the very least, these type of match, I don't need to see the Painmaker anymore. Because when I get to the point where I start to worry about you getting seriously lifelong injured during a match, then it's time for you to stop doing the fucking matches. If you want to be Jericho and just wrestle regular Jericho matches, fine. Painmaker, you're too old to be the Painmaker. I hate to say it like that. You're too old to be the Painmaker. That needs to stop. Because if you keep being the Painmaker, you're going to end up with a fucking pacemaker, okay? You need to stop. It needs to end, okay? No more Painmaker. No more Painmaker Jericho. Then the fucking drill finish. Oh my God. Oh my God. Now, I'll say it again. Do I consider myself an AEW sicko? No. I feel like that's disingenuous. There's people out there that will fucking hype up every single thing AEW does. They will act like they work for AEW. I'm not one of those people. I feel like I objectively watch AEW and give you my opinion whether you're gonna fucking like it or not. That drill finish was fucking horrible. And it's one of those things, and WWE has its moments too. Like some of the Danhausen shit, some of like the shit they do. It's one of those things where if you're watching with somebody and you want them to get into wrestling, somebody who's a casual fan who doesn't really know what's going on, they watch that shit and then you look over at them and they're looking like this. What the fuck? I never want to feel like that. I know some of you out there understand. I hate that shit. I hate when I watch wrestling with somebody and they say, huh, that's fake, right? Or, oh, that's lame. Or, oh, that's corny. I hate that shit. That's why sometimes it's best for me to just watch wrestling by my fucking self because I don't need the comments. I don't need the comments. And that was just one of those things. That drill spot was just one of those things where it's like, what the fuck? Could have did anything. You could have gave him a lion tamer on top of some fucking glass. You could have gave him a lion tamer on top of some fucking barbed wire. There's so many different lion tamers you could have fucking gave instead of that fucking drill spot. It fucking sucked. All right, guys, that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed. Talked a little bit about Redemption. There was a lot of things I did like. There was a lot of things I didn't like. And I had some questions. So, with that said, I'll check you guys next time on next week's episode of the Crimson Mass Show. You know the name. It's MFGDs. You know the games, the Crimson Mass Show. Like, subscribe. We out of here.